And welcome back. Well, it's estimated that only 1 out of every 3 people with mental illness receives treatment for it. Our next guest knows firsthand how hard it is to cope with the disease.
Michelle Dickinson-Moravek grew up with a mom who suffered from bipolar disorder and at times lived with it untreated. Michelle wrote this book with the hope to help the world understand mental illness better. It is called Breaking Into My Life. Great to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Incredible story. So you grew up, your mom, were you an only child? Or
I
did
was.
You have, okay, so you were adopted, right? And what was it like growing up with your mom? She was bipolar. So for people who aren't familiar with that particular form of mental illness, what was that like for her and for you to experience a mom with that?
Yeah, so bipolar disorder typically has the rapid mood changes from being very, very high, very manic and in a great mood to going into those deep, dark depressions. So where she could cry for hours and there's nothing you can do to console her, to the point where that roller coaster goes on and then eventually she hits an all-time low and has to be hospitalized and treated there.
What was that like as a kid? Because oftentimes, you want to be parented, but in that situation, I can imagine there's a role reversal.
Exactly. I learned quite young to put my needs on the shelf and really focus on making sure that there was peace and harmony with my mom. So I did whatever I could to try to elevate her mood, thinking that I actually had control, but I really didn't. So it was hard. It was hard. I did find some support in my girlfriend's parents, and I found like some surrogate parents growing up who were just amazing to me. And I also had my family that surrounded me, like aunts and uncles and grandparents.
Yeah.
Did people know that she was mentally ill? Was it something you discussed, and that your friends' parents, for example, did they know that?
They did know that, and they did often on the down low, like check in on me and say, how are you doing? How's it going? Where's mom these days? And so I would tell them. And that was like an outlet. It would help me.
Was your mom ever suicidal?
Not that I remember. She was so treated, she was treated very well in different types of treatment, but she would stop taking her medication, but it would always be caught pretty quickly, so she wouldn't like go into spiral out of control kind of thing. So no, I don't remember her having any suicidal thoughts, but I was a child, so who knows?
And she passed away, right, when she was in her 60s?
She did pass away.
Okay.
So when you think about mental illness, because I think a lot of people, there's still a stigma out there. I think it's starting to be broken down. People are talking about getting help and things like that. But a lot of people are still afraid of it, especially when you hear a term like bipolar.
Yes.
So you say, though, don't be afraid of mental illness.
Exactly.
After living with it. Why is that your takeaway from your situation?
Yeah, so my whole goal with writing this book was to humanize mental health, mental illness, right? If people can understand it, it becomes less of something that you fear. So that was the goal. And when you think about mental illness, it's something that we don't want to talk about. But, a colleague of mine said to me, if you cut your finger while you were making dinner, would you just like ignore it and like, hope it would be okay? No, you'd probably bleed to death.
Right.
So why is it that we don't acknowledge when we're dealing with something emotionally or mentally and get the support we need? It really isn't something to fear, but conversation has to happen so we can get comfortable talking about it.
Were there any gifts as you look back on your childhood and growing up with a mom who was bipolar? Because I think sometimes people don't see, I'm sure that there were some wonderful, loving things that she did. And so everything about her wasn't about her mental illness, right?
Right. There were those snapshots in time when she was just treated in the hospital, when she would come home, where I felt like I had my mom back. It's funny, when you grow up with a healthy mom, maybe you take for granted that it's just great that she's there. But I had these limited windows of time when she was normal, when she wasn't dealing with either depression or mania, right after she was treated, that I truly savored because she was like this beautiful, loving mother that I longed for. So I loved that. But then also in my book, and you can find information about my book on my website, which is www.breakingintomylife.com, I talk about, in my epilogue, I share all the goodness that came out of that experience. It shaped me, right? It made me who I am. And there's so many good aspects of who I am today as a woman because of those experiences. one of which being on a mission to cause change and remove the stigma.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And I love that you say breaking into my life, because that's what you feel you've done since then, is really break into your life. Here's the website again so you can get a copy of it, breakingintomylife.com, to hear more about Michelle's story. Thanks so
And
much for
your
joining
message for people who provide care to people with mental illness is wonderful too. Thank you so much.